is wonderful to see you again. Welcome back, Ciji.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you and I reconnected at EndoFound's Patient Day, and you had a very powerful conversation with your family to all the attendees of Patient Day about the importance of how to have these conversations about endometriosis. Why was it so pivotal for you to highlight this?
It was important for me because when battling endo, I found myself hospitalized a lot. My house was kind of in turmoil, it was disorganized, and that chaos affected my children emotionally. Um, there was a lot of anxiety not knowing if they were going to come home from school and I was going to be home or away at the hospital. And my hospital stays were lengthy, unpredictable, and they saw the effects of endo. They saw the pain bring me to my knees. They saw, I mean, sometimes it was just like, walking around my house and then feeling like I was 10 centimeters dilated. And it would just, as much as I would try not to cry out or cry at all, it was the most excruciating pain I've ever felt. And they witnessed all of that. So it was really important for me to communicate to them, this is what endometriosis is. And yes, mama's in a lot of pain and, but it's not going to kill me right now. And we just mommy has to see a doctor and we're going to cut it out and then things will get better. And so as they started, asking questions and I was answering questions, I noticed their demeanor calm and I noticed how the information truly was powerful for them, because there was a reason why, and they understood the reason. They understood that it was an illness, that it was, um, temporary while I figured it out and could get the proper treatment and care.
How would you recommend someone in a similar position sit down their children and have this discussion?
For me, we have um, what's considered to be an open family where there is no topic off limits. There's no taboos in talking about our anatomy and really anything. A children's curiosity is natural and they just want to know. And I feel like if you remove um, these preconceived notions about talking about your vagina, for instance. Um, it is science, it's our body. And if it was knee surgery, we would be talking about it no problem, right? Because we can talk about our knee like it's no big deal, because society has deemed that appropriate, whereas like vagina and people cringe. I come at it from a very scientific, educational approach, very matter of fact and age appropriate in the sense that, I make sure that I'm using terminology that they can understand. So if my 8-year-old asks me a question, I know that I can get a little bit more in depth about, where it's located and, you know, um, recovery or wherever her questions, guide the conversation. But I let them guide the conversation. My 5-year-old's questions, at the time she was 4, so they were more like, "Are you gonna be okay? Is this gonna kill you?" And it was more like, "Well, this hurts, and it's called this," and instead of getting in depth about, endometriosis and lesions and adhesions, it was just like, "It's called endometriosis, and that's why mommy is feeling pain, but I'm gonna go see a doctor." Um, and we're going to take it out. So then that leads to, well, how are you going to take it out? As soon as I said the word surgery, waterworks, tears, fear, anxiety, which is all very normal. But I think for me, it was important to be like, yes, surgery is scary, but once I do that, I'm going to feel better and I'm going to be able to play with you. And these are my expectations. And so she was on board. She was ready for it. And my stay in New York was 2 weeks, which is the longest I have ever left my children. And it was the one and only time that my 4-year-old, who was incredibly anxious, losing sight of me, not knowing if she was going to see me again, was the only time that she was confident, she was excited, she was on board and supportive.
So for you, openness, transparency, and age-appropriate terminology was really key for your children to be able to embrace and understand, because I think that fear is really understandable. Did they ever
Mhm.
ask you, is endometriosis something I could get? Is this, did they ever go that far in the conversation?
They haven't, they didn't, but, in going to patient day, right, now we're a year out from my surgery, but there's still residual anxieties whenever I'm going to leave.
Mm,
There's still that fear of, "Are you gonna come back when you say you're gonna come back?" Because, one day at the doctor can lead to a week hospitalized, so there's still that still it was with my now five-year-old, and so when it comes to endometriosis, my children are incredibly supportive because they realize how important it is. And when it came to patient day, um, they were on board because they were also a part of it. They got to put in their say and they were excited because they do have something to contribute.
mhm,
They've experienced it. My 8-year old, it was such a powerful moment. When I asked her, I said, "Do you believe that I explained endometriosis in a way that you could understand?" And she said, "Yeah, plus I lived it. I saw it too," which is so powerful because our children, may not be able to always express themselves, but they're always watching, taking in, and coming up with their own ideas of, you know, um, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Interpreting what's going on around them. So this time I told them it's really important for me to stay in the endometriosis community because they're my children, and I tell them, "You could get this. It is true." I didn't tell them that they're 7 to 10
right,
times more likely to get them. I feel like some details are okay to leave out, but,
absolutely.
my focus is we're gonna stay informed, we're gonna keep learning about this so that if ever anyone else in our family, battles this, we have information and we know people, we know where to go for help. Um, and I talk about the importance of knowing the signs and symptoms because maybe one day you can help your friend.
No, all really pertinent, important points there. Where are you at now, if you don't mind going there with your endometriosis journey? The last time we spoke on EndoTV, you had a very serious situation that occurred where when you were speaking to us, you were saying, I'm running out of my breath. You just had excision surgery. You're like, I'm really shortness of breath. I'm not feeling great. And that ended up being a blood clot. Very serious,
Mhm.
potential, adverse, reaction of any kind of surgery. So where are you at now?
I am still on my endo journey. I have to say, it's incredibly devastating to come to the realization that endo doesn't end with a hysterectomy, like I had been told by my gynecologists in the past. And ever since I had my pulmonary embolism, I've been experiencing shortness of breath, um, persistent cough, tightness in my chest. And this has actually gone all the way back to I had my surgery in January of 2023, and in July of 2023, I had COVID. After COVID, I had my period every 2 weeks for a solid week, where I was hemorrhaging for the first 2.5 days. I would hemorrhage for a good 36 hours, having to change a pad in a Supermax tampon every hour. And this went on for months, and that's what exacerbated my endo and led us to Dr. Setchkin in New York. Um, but along with that was this cough that would never go away, that this shortness of breath, this tightness in my chest, and I just attributed that to having COVID. I just felt like before COVID, I've never been sick. Aside from my 30-year journey with endo, I've never had issues, respiratory or otherwise, never had the flu. I was very healthy aside from the endo. But ever since I had COVID, I've been having issues with my lungs. And my husband and my mother have grown very concerned over the last year. Um, and I just told them, like, this is just how it is with COVID. However, at patient day, I met another patient who came to speak to me after. our panel endo at the dinner table where we spoke about talking to our children, my husband and I, about endometriosis. And, she had thoracic endo. And, and going about, my husband had asked her, what is that like for you? Because we had heard from quite a few patients at patient day that with thoracic endo. And it stuck out for us because we didn't really know much about it. And when she started talking and describing the tightness in her chest, um, I went cold.
Hmm.
Her persistent cough, her shortness of breath, how it comes and goes. But it was mainly like whenever I would call my doctor and say, "Hey, I'm having chest pains, like it's tight, I can't breathe," they would send me for an EKG or an echocardiogram, and everything would come back normal. So they would I'm on steroids, an inhaler, and but it never went away. It was always like an ongoing issue. So that led me to believe that I have potentially thoracic endo. And this week, Monday, I met with some endometriosis specialists in Tampa Bay, and it was an endo event here that I went to, and I told them I'm having an endo patient has to advocate for themselves like nobody else.
Mhm.
You know, at patient day, I told Dr. Setchkin, the next Sunday, this Sunday, I'm like, Dr. Setchkin, I think I have thoracic endo. I need to figure this out. So he gave me a list of tests that I need to come back home, find doctors, get, and then send the results to him. And just getting, for instance, a referral to a pulmonologist was a fight,
Mhm.
because my primary care is on medical leave. His wife was my gynecologist. She was the one who diagnosed me with stage 4, and so he is whatever you need, right?
Mhm.
But he's out. So now I have to fight with a doctor who's filling in for him for this referral, and I have to prove why I need it. Well, first of all, I have a PPO. My insurance doesn't require any pre-authorizations, doesn't require any referrals. However, the pulmonologist's office requires it. It's just part of their office practice, their rules. So, but now I need to prove to her why I need it. My CT scan from last May came back that, my pulmonary embolism has resolved itself. My lungs look good. And it's a fight, because you're telling them I'm a stage 4 endo patient. I believe I have thoracic endo. I need to have these tests so I can forward it to my surgeon. And they're just like, you know, they wanna find every reason under the sun that it could
Mhm.
possibly be something else, and I am just sick and tired of having to go to a doctor and fight
And fight.
because
Yeah.
they don't because they don't know me, they don't know my history, they don't I'm just another patient coming in and asking for something that they don't feel I need,
Mhm.
right? And it's outlandish. She's like, "Well, at the ER doctor had to Google thoracic endo,"
Mhm.
because I'm
Never a
telling
great
her,
time.
like, right? Yeah, I'm in the ER. I am out of breath. I have this horrible tightness in my chest, and now I'm freaked out because I realize that the risk is that I could have a collapsed lung. And the last thing I want to do is have a collapsed lung with thoracic endo in a place where there are no surgeons that I feel are qualified or that I trust to operate on me.
Mhm.
So if I want a collapsed lung, I want to do it while I'm on a work trip in New York so that I know that my doctors who I
God
trust
God
will be
forbid,
able to fix it.
the fact that you even have to say those words, "If I have a collapsed lung," that has to even be a reality for you, and have that in your head every single day that you're worried you're not in a place where you're gonna get proper care is incredibly anxiety inducing.
It is. It is. And on top of this, there's also that I told my kids I was going to get my hysterectomy and things were going to get better. And now I haven't had the conversation with them yet because I want to have more information and I want to make sure that it is thoracic endo before we start talking about this. Um, but I don't want anything to happen to me and then new fears unlocked. are unlocked for them. So, the ER doctor who Googled thoracic endo was like, it's so rare, that rarely happens to people. It's like, listen, lady,
Mhm.
okay, I have stage 4. It's as bad as it gets, okay? And I've been doing this for 30 years. I have been advocating for myself. I know my body. Nobody knows their body, I believe, more than an endo patient who has had to self-diagnose so that they could advocate for themselves, so that they could find the proper medical care and get the proper medical testing so that they could get, relief from the pain that we all feel.
Mhm.
And so that's where I'm at in my journey. Monday, I see a cardiologist and like, I'm already pissed off. Like,
Mm.
like, I
'Cause you
haven't
know
even
what you
gone to the
mean.
appointment. I'm pissed off because, my surgeon told me I need an MRI of my heart, and I know it's gonna be a fight because they're gonna be like, "Well, your CAT scan, your echocardiogram, your
Mhm.
EKG came back normal," and it's like,
You're like, I know
well,
what I need, and you're not
I
giving it to
I
me."
know, like, for every surgery I have had, all of my tests came back normal. My last surgery, I had an MRI, I had CAT scans, I had a saline hysterectogram, everything came back normal, and you know what? You know what Dr. Sechkin found? He found my rectum connected to my cervix, my bladder connected to my ureters, I had masses and cysts, or no, sorry, my bladder connected to my uterus, and masses and cysts all over my ureters and my left cavity where uh, I had a botched surgery, right? The surgery before was supposed to have removed my left ovary and my left fallopian tube, and I only had an eighth of my ovary left. So think about how tiny an eighth of an ovary is.
Mhm.
And now they didn't even take all of that out, and it grew massive endometriomas. All of my tests came back normal. And I'm thinking to myself, how do you have an MRI and your organs aren't in the right place and it comes back normal?
Mhm. Yes.
I
I
don't
mean,
get it.
and we hear that over and over again. Blood tests are normal. Everything is clear. And then
Mhm.
you go in and it's a mess. It's a complete mess.
It is.
I can sympathize with you when you're on that journey, you know your body, and you have doctors that just won't give you what you need in order to propel you to get into the right hands so that you can get the right treatment. And I really I sympathize and empathize with that because I have been in those shoes not too long ago where it
I know
does
you have.
feel like you are you have, like you said, you have to fight. I mean, I have literally I've had a doctor yell at me,
Mhm.
and I had to yell back with information. And
Mhm.
and then at the end of it, he actually called me, said he was sorry. This is not an endo doctor, just to be clear. Um, and he called me back and he said, "I am so sorry I didn't listen to you. I think you're absolutely right. I want you to come back, keep us updated as to what goes on, because every time we have these conversations, I feel like there is something illuminating going on within the endometriosis community, and more importantly, the
Agree.
treatment of endometriosis in the hospital setting, in the physician's office, that isn't necessarily an endo expert. So again, CG, we are
Mhm.
always rooting for you, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
being such an advocate. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe and like our YouTube page.